What if your entire identity was defined not by your choices, but by the exact patch of dirt beneath your feet? Could you harden a world where the concept of privacy does not exist, and every breath is shared with the livestock keeping you warm? Is it possible that our modern obsession with freedom has blinded us to the profound, terrifying security of absolute belonging? How long would it take for your digital mind to break under the weight of a silence so deep it feels physical? Do you truly believe you are more resilient than a man who saw a single sunrise as a victory over death itself? You expect a world of romanticized knights and grand stone castles, but the reality of the American medieval reconstruction, where you now stand, offers no such comfort. The air here does not smell of old books or museum dust. It smells of damp thatch, wood smoke that bites the back of your throat, and the heavy, sweet musk of wet earth. You are waking up in a space that defies every modern instinct of comfort. There is no switch to toggle, no glass to insulate you from the creeping frost of the Appalachian dawn. The walls of this wattle and daub hovel are not barriers. They are breathing membranes of mud and straw that pulse with the rhythm of the outside world. Your eyes open to a darkness so thick it feels like a physical weight on your chest, a void only broken by the faint, ghostly grey light filtering through the smoke hole in the roof. The floor beneath your thin straw pallet is packed earth, frozen into a hard, unforgiving surface that leaches the heat directly from your bones. You feel the grit against your skin, a constant reminder that in this life there is no separation between the human and the mineral. To your left, the rhythmic, heavy breathing of a goat provides the only soundtrack to this early hour, its animal heat a vital component of your survival. This is the architecture of awakening, a sensory shock that strips away the ego and replaces it with the raw biological necessity of the immediate. You reach out, your fingers brushing the rough, splintered wood of a communal bench, and the texture is a sudden jolt to your system. Everything here is tactile, coarse, and functional. There is no aesthetic ornamentation that does not serve a purpose of insulation or structural integrity. As you rise, the cold air hits your skin like a blade, forcing a sharp intake of breath that tastes of ash. The transition from the dream state to the feudal reality is not a gradual fade, but a violent rupture. You are no longer an individual with a schedule. You are a gear in a massive, slow-moving ecological machine. The light is your master, and as the sun begins to bleed over the horizon, casting long, distorted shadows across the valley, you realize that your entire day has already been written by the requirements of the soil. The structural dependence on the land is absolute. If the fire is not fed, you freeze. If the thatch is not patched, you drown. If the grain is not protected, you starve. This is not a simulation of poverty, but a masterclass in the fragility of existence. Every movement you make is calculated to conserve energy, a slow and deliberate choreography of survival that has been perfected over centuries. You wrap yourself in heavy, unprocessed wool that feels abrasive and heavy, its weight a strange comfort against the encroaching morning mist. Outside, the world is a monochromatic landscape of browns, greys, and deep greens, a visual representation of a life stripped of synthetic vibration. The silence of the forest surrounding the settlement is not empty. It is a dense, expectant presence that demands your constant attention. You are an observer now, an intruder in a time that does not recognize your modern anxieties. Your pulse begins to sync with the slow, methodical pace of the village as it stirs. This is the beginning of a transformation where the abstract becomes concrete and the distant past becomes a shivering, breathing reality. The way the light hits the dew on the rye fields suggests a beauty that is inseparable from the labor required to harvest it. You are starting to understand that in this world, meaning is found in the resistance of the material. The very air you breathe feels thicker, laden with the history of those who stood exactly where you are, facing the same cold, the same hunger, and the same terrifyingly beautiful dawn. The structural integrity of your world now depends on your ability to read the signs of the wind and the dampness of the wood. As you step across the threshold of the hut, the transition is complete. You are no longer visiting the past. You are being consumed by it. The ground is uneven, challenging your balance. reminding you that nature has not been paved over or corrected for your convenience. Every step is a negotiation with the terrain. This immersive journey into the heart of the feudal struggle is just beginning to reveal its secrets, showing how the most basic elements of life were once the most sacred. The depth of this experience is rooted in the honesty of the struggle, a truth that we often lose in the noise of the present. To truly grasp the weight of this history and the stories etched into the very dirt of these reconstructed fields, you must remain present for every revelation. Check if you are already subscribed to this channel. Having access to this kind of deep, technically accurate storytelling is the only way to truly escape the surface of history and understand the roots of our own existence, ensuring that you never lose the thread that unites our current comfort with the brutal sacrifice of our ancestors. The sun now touches the tops of the trees, and the heat is a distant promise, almost an illusion. You watch the steam rising from the manure and clay, a primordial smoke that signals the start of the work. There is no room for doubt when survival demands immediate action. The social structure that you will soon come to know is not made of written laws, but of physical obligations engraved in the routine of the body. The cold begins to subside, but the pressure of collective responsibility only increases. You feel the connection between your hand and the tool, between your effort and the master's table. The cycle closes over you like an iron armor, heavy, restrictive, but curiously protective against the chaos of the unknown. As you step beyond the threshold of your hovel, the vast expanse of the open field system stretches before you like a living, breathing tapestry of mud and promise. This is not the fragmented, private landscape of the modern world. It is a complex communal geometry of survival. You feel the weight of the collective eye upon you, a silent pressure that defines every movement of your tired limbs. Here, in the heart of this reconstructed medieval American enclave, the soil is the only true sovereign. You walk toward the long, narrow strips of land, your boots sinking into the thick, dark loam that smells of ancient decay and new beginnings. The physical mechanics of the moldboard plow, a heavy beast of wood and iron, demand a strength you didn't know you possessed. As you grip the worn handles, the vibration of the earth as it is turned over travels up your arms, settling in your joints like a permanent ache. You are not just turning dirt. You are participating in the social hierarchy of the soil itself. Each furrow is a testament to the village's organization, a map of shared risk and shared reward, where no man is an island. The contrast between your individual exhaustion and the monumental stability of the group is a revelation. Your muscles scream in protest against the repetitive motion, the rhythmic swing of the scythe or the steady push of the plow, yet you cannot stop. To fail is to endanger the entire community. The sun climbs higher, and the atmosphere becomes dense with the sound of communal labor, the lowing of oxen, the sharp cries of overseers, and the rhythmic thud of tools meeting the earth. You notice how the layout of the fields dictates your social interactions. There are no fences to hide behind, only the invisible boundaries of tradition and necessity. The open field system is a masterpiece of medieval engineering, ensuring that every family has a share of the good soil and the bad, the high ground and the marshy hollows. It is a radical form of equality, born from the absolute terror of a failed harvest. You feel the grit of the dust in your lungs and the salt of your sweat stinging your eyes, a sensory immersion that strips away the abstract notions of work and replaces them with the raw reality of toil. The heat of the midday sun begins to bake the ground, and the air shimmers with a heavy golden haze. You see your neighbors, their faces etched with the same grim determination, their bodies leaning into the task with a synchronized grace that comes from years of shared hardship. This is the structural backbone of the feudal world, a crushing, relentless weight of expectation that provides the only safety net available. The fragility of your individual life is balanced by the terrifyingly robust nature of the village collective. If you fall, the strip must still be plowed. If you hunger, the grain must still be stored for the winter. You are a cell in a larger organism, and your value is measured in the depth of your furrow. The tension between the desire for rest and the necessity of movement creates a psychological friction that is almost palpable. Every drop of sweat is a down payment on a future you might not live to see. The sheer scale of the labor required to produce a single loaf of bread is staggering, a fact that hits you with the force of a physical blow as you contemplate the endless rows of grain. The social hierarchy is not just a concept here, it is carved into the very landscape. The Lord's land is better drained, more centrally located, and always the first to be tended. You recognize the injustice, yet you too recognize the order it provides. Without the structure of the manor, the fields would be a chaos of competing interests, leading to a swift and certain starvation. The smell of the earth changes as the day progresses, turning from the sharp scent of dampness to a dry, dusty odor that clings to your clothes and skin. You are becoming part of the field, a temporary occupant of a space that has seen 1,000 men like you come and go. The realization of your own insignificance is both a burden and a strange, liberating comfort. You are not responsible for the world. You are only responsible for the strip of land before you. This profound connection to the material reality of existence is something the modern mind has almost entirely forgotten. The weight of the common field is the weight of history itself, pressing down on your shoulders, demanding your absolute presence in the moment. As the shadows begin to lengthen and the first hints of evening cool the air, you look back at the progress made by the village. The transformation of the landscape through collective will is a sight of brutal, honest beauty. It is a reminder that civilization is built on the backs of those who had no choice but to keep moving. The emotional toll of this realization is deep and inescapable, a haunting echo of the lives spent in service to the soil. Imagine the silence of a man who worked this very earth, knowing his name would be forgotten, but his labor would feed his grandchildren. Comment now with the phrase, "I feel the weight of the earth in my soul and the strength of those who came before me," to honor the invisible sacrifice that built the pillars of our modern world and show that you understand the depth of this heritage. The fatigue you feel now is not just physical, it is a spiritual resonance with the past. The structure of your life has been simplified to the bone, leaving only the essential. The security you seek is not in contracts or bank accounts, but in the strength of your neighbor's arm and the integrity of the seeds you buried. The field does not forgive, but it sustains. The stability of the system is bought with the exhaustion of the individual, a Faustian bargain that ensured the survival of the species through the darkest centuries. You wipe your brow with the back of a hand stained with earth, feeling the roughness of your own skin, and realize you are changing. The sophistication of your former life seems pale and insubstantial before the absolute truth of a plowed field. The evening light gilds the furrows, creating a pattern of light and shadow that looks like sacred writing. You are a scribe of destiny, writing with the plow the story of human permanence in a world of uncertainty. Every heavy step you take toward the village is a step taken by millions before you, in a cycle that knows no end. You are the field, and the field is you, a loop of labor that transcends time and space. As you leave the open fields behind, the silhouette of the manor house begins to dominate your horizon, a vertical intrusion of stone and authority in a world of horizontal mud. You are moving from the raw elements of nature into the heart of the feudal machine, where the harvest you just bled for is measured, taxed, and stored. The transition is felt in the very air. The scent of damp earth is replaced by the dry, dusty aroma of the tithe barn and the metallic tang of the village smithy. You feel a strange constriction in your chest as you approach the heavy oak gates. This is the structural center of your universe, the place where the abstract concept of protection is negotiated for the concrete reality of submission. Your eyes are drawn to the thickness of the walls, a physical manifestation of a security that feels both comforting and suffocating. Inside the courtyard, the sounds are different. The rhythmic clatter of the millstone, the barking of the Lord's hounds, and the low, urgent murmurs of men discussing quotas and grain reserves. You are a witness to the mechanics of power. The mill, a massive structure of gears and grinding stones, represents the technological peak of your world. Yet you are prohibited from using your own hand mill at home. The Lord's monopoly on the basic processing of food is a reminder that even your hunger is regulated by an external force. You run your hand along the rough stone of the granary, feeling the coldness of the rock against your calloused palm. This building is the village's insurance policy against the winter, but the keys do not hang from your belt. The tension between the abundance stored within these walls and the scarcity you face in your own hut creates a psychological friction that defines your existence. You observe the Lord's bailiff, a man whose presence represents the invisible threads of law and duty that bind you to this specific patch of American soil. Every sack of grain delivered is a debt paid for the right to exist another day under the shadow of these battles. The fragility of your life is balanced against the permanence of the stone. You see the contrast in the architecture. While your home is built of materials that rot and wash away, the manor is built to outlast generations. It is a monument to the stability that keeps the wolves at bay, both literal and metaphorical. The sensory details here are sharper, more industrial. The heat from the forge sings the hair on your arms as you pass, and the scream of metal on metal sets your teeth on edge. This is where the tools of your labor are born and repaired, a reminder that you are part of a technological ecosystem you cannot maintain alone. The organization of the manor is a masterpiece of functional design, where every room and every person has a specific, unyielding purpose. There is no waste here, only the cold calculation of resources. You feel the weight of the social contract pressing down on you. In exchange for your labor and your freedom, you are granted a place in the order of the world. The safety offered by these walls is real. When the raiders come or the hungry strikes, this is where the survival of the community will be decided. Yet the cost is the total surrender of your autonomy. You are an observer of your own captivity, finding a grim satisfaction in the efficiency of the system. The light in the courtyard is fragmented, broken by the high walls into patches of brilliant sun and deep, cold shadow. You move through these zones of temperature, a physical metaphor for the precariousness of your status. To stay in the light, you must produce. To fall into the shadow is to become a burden the system will eventually discard. The atmospheric density of the manor is heavy with the history of those who negotiated these same terms for 1,000 years. You are standing at the crossroads of human organization, where the need for collective security birthed the structures of inequality that still echo in the modern world. The realization that your survival is tied to a man who doesn't know your name is a bitter pill. Yet you swallow it, because the alternative is the chaos of the wilderness. The structural integrity of the feudal world depends on this mutual, if lopsided, dependence. You watch the grain being poured into the bins, a golden river of effort that disappears into the darkness of the Lord's treasury. The sound of the falling seed is like the ticking of a clock, counting down the days until the first frost. This is the reality of the social hierarchy. It is not a philosophy, it is a logistical necessity. You feel a profound sense of exhaustion, not just from the day's labor, but from the spiritual weight of being a small part of a very large, very cold machine. The beauty of the craftsmanship in the manor, the carved lintels and forged hinges, stands in stark contrast to the utilitarian bleakness of your own life. It is a visual representation of where the surplus of your life goes. It is invested in the permanence of the institution. As you prepare to leave the manor and return to your own humble quarters, you carry the image of the stone walls with you. They are your shield and your cage. If you are beginning to see how the architecture of power shaped the very soul of humanity, and if you appreciate this deep dive into the structural foundations of our past, please leave a like on this video to support the meticulous reconstruction of this history. The gates creak as they swing shut behind you, the sound echoing through the valley like a purpose. The safety of the manor is a fragile thing, built on the continued sweat of men like you, and held together by the thin thread of tradition. You walk back toward the village, the air cooling as the sun dips lower, feeling the immense gravity of the system you inhabit. You are part of something vast, something terrifying, and something undeniably stable. The road beneath your feet is worn smooth by the passage of thousands, each one contributing their brick to the edifice of civilization. You are no longer just a person. You are a component of a legacy. The darkness of the approaching night doesn't feel like a threat anymore, but like a blanket that covers both the Lord in his hall and the peasant in his hut. In the eyes of the earth and the stone, you are both temporary, but the structure you have built together, will remain long after your bones have turned back into the soil of the common field. The structural grip of the manor relaxes as you distance yourself, but its influence remains etched in your posture. You are a man of the grain, a man of the Lord, and a man of the stone. Your reality is defined by these limits, and in those limits you find the only peace allowed to you. The evening wind begins to howl through the narrow lanes of the village, carrying with it the scent of burning peat and the promise of a cold, silent rest. As the last traces of the sun vanish behind the rugged Appalachian ridges of this reconstruction, a profound and terrifying darkness begins to swallow the valley. This is not the artificial twilight of your modern world, diluted by the glow of distant cities or the hum of electricity. This is the true primordial darkness of the medieval soul. You return to your hovel, the physical exhaustion of the fields now settling into a deep, rhythmic thrumming in your veins. The transition from the active toil of the day to the forced stillness of the night is the final structural layer of your feudal existence. Inside, the fire has led to a heap of glowing embers, casting long, dancing shadows that play across the wattle and daub walls. You sit on the edge of your straw pallet, the texture of the rough wool blanket against your skin serving as the only remaining anchor to the material world. The sensory environment has shifted from the grit of the earth to the intangible density of the spirit. In this darkness, the boundaries of your physical self seem to dissolve. The sounds of the night, the wind whistling through the thatch, the settling of the wooden beams, the distant howl of a wolf, are no longer background noise. They are the voices of a world that you do not own, but to which you belong. This evening ritual is not one of leisure, but of reflection and transcendence. As the cold air seeps through the cracks, you realize that your survival today was not a solo performance, but a communal victory. The philosophical elevation of your experience begins here, in the silence. You start to contemplate what the modern world has traded for its comforts. We have gained light, but we have lost the stars. We have gained autonomy, but we have lost the absolute certainty of being needed. In this hut, you are not a consumer. You are a vital link in a chain that stretches back through time and upward toward the spiritual sky. The stars above, visible through the smoke hole, are not distant balls of gas, but the literal map of your faith and your fate. They represent an order as rigid and as beautiful as the fields you plowed. The contrast between the vulnerability of your shivering body and the eternal stability of the cosmos creates a sense of peace that no modern convenience can replicate. You are part of a grand celestial architecture. This is the transcendence of the dark, the moment where the struggle for bread turns into a search for meaning. The structural dependence you felt toward the Lord and the land now extends toward the divine. You realize that the medieval peasant did not live in a state of constant misery, but in a state of constant presence. Every sensation, from the bite of the frost to the warmth of the communal soup, was a direct communication with reality. As you lie back, the weight of the day's labor becomes a foundation upon which your spirit can rest. You have surrendered your will to the cycles of the earth, and in that surrender, you have found a strange, indestructible dignity. The fragility of the human condition is laid bare in this darkness, yet it is supported by the immense strength of communal certainty. You know exactly who you are, whom you serve, and where you will lie when the toil is finally over. This clarity is the ultimate luxury of the feudal world. The modern mind, fractured by infinite choices and constant noise, finds this simplicity haunting. You are no longer just a visitor in this time. You have been remade by the rhythm of the soil and the silence of the night. The light of the embers finally fades, leaving you in a total velvet blackness that is both a tomb and a womb. You have completed the cycle of 24 hours in a world that demands everything and promises nothing but the chance to do it again tomorrow. This immersion into the depths of history is a reminder of the raw materials of our humanity. To ensure you continue to explore these profound narratives of the human spirit and the structures that built our civilization, check if you are already subscribed to this channel. Subscribing is the most powerful way to stay connected to these journeys into the heart of what it means to survive and find meaning in the harshest of worlds. If you watched until here it is, because you liked this case, leave a comment saying, "I watched until here." so that I can get to know you and know who really likes the stories here on the channel. Your presence in this digital community is the modern equivalent of the village fire, a place where we gather to remember who we were before the world became so bright and so lonely. As you close your eyes in this reconstructed past, feeling the ancient cold and the timeless peace of the valley, take a moment to leave a like on this video to honor the resilience of the human soul. Share this experience with others who seek a deeper understanding of our shared heritage, spreading the echoes of these forgotten lives across the vast network of the present. The darkness is not an end, but a transition. The dawn will come again, the plough will wait, and the cycle will continue. You are part of the story now, a thread woven into the tapestry of the earth, resting in the fragile, beautiful safety of the dark. The silence is your final teacher, whispering that even in the deepest night, you are never truly alone as long as you belong to the land and to those who walk it with you. The transcendence is complete. The peasant wakes up within the modern man, and the world is never the same again. Don't forget to share this video to help others find their way back to the roots of our existence. Your journey through the feudal world has reached its conclusion, but the reflections it sparked will remain, glowing like the last embers in a darkened hut, lighting the way toward a more grounded and meaningful future.